You don't want to give your best at work, then come home and give your wife and your kids the dregs of the day. You know what I mean? It's like you work out so I can be that man that when I get home, I'm like, I have the energy still to be able to give to my family.
Hey, this is the Money Hole Podcast. I am Chris Lamm. Today I have a special guest, my good friend Fabiano Altamura. And please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and download. That would really help us get these messages out. And without further ado, Mr. Fab, thanks for being with me, bro.
It's always a pleasure. I love doing these with you, bro. It's great.
How you been lately? You look fit. You
I've
look
been
healthy.
Good. Dude, do you know what? It's a funny thing when you get to our age. I know I'm older than you, but it's like I've always tried to be fit.
Mm-hmm.
But since we started our 75 hard, dude, it's just, everything is just transformed.
Yeah, you look so healthy, man.
Thank you, bro.
I mean, I know you love hearing that.
I do love hearing that.
Yeah,
I do love hearing that.
Hey, who doesn't?
So do you. And I
do, man.
We were having this men's group the other night with Braveco, and you had that Kuyu top on. And I was like, dude, your guns look jacked.
Yep. I was sucking it in the whole time. I was just like, I'm going to make this shirt work.
No, you looked amazing, dude.
You.
The fitness journey you've been on is so good. You look amazing.
Yeah. You know, for me, the biggest thing, as you know, has been diet. It's like, I've been working out probably for 15, 17 years, but there's been many years, like you wouldn't necessarily know it looking at me, because it was so hard to commit to the nutrition part of it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think, you know, obviously for you and so many people, that's the biggest thing. I turn 40 next month, and, you know, hanging out with you guys, man, being around people that are heading in the same direction is probably one of the most powerful things. I think change
it isn't having a like-minded community is like, you know, you have to run with people that are implementing that culture and rhythm that you are doing, because if not, you'll get sidetracked. You won't believe in it, but we hold each other accountable.
Yep.
And I think that's so important in a community, you know?
Yeah. I think every guy in our group right now is trying to get healthy.
Oh yeah. And it looks amazing. I mean, being healthy with nutrition, constant workouts, it changes your focus. It changes your mind. It affects your marriage. It affects everything.
Yeah, it totally does. For a lot of people, when it comes to fitness, and I'm speaking for myself, because I've been, you know, on this journey for a long time trying to get to my best shape. You have to really have something that's a lot more motivating. And then you have to create an atmosphere that will help you succeed.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, you know, just some very simple things like the way that I make my breakfast, food prepping, being around people that are going in the same direction. And I think one of the big ones was the realization that when I come home after a crazy day of fighting my battles in the world and business with people, I need to have energy with those kids, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, cause they're just, you know, 1.5, 6 and 7.
Yeah.
And they don't know what no energy looks like.
Right.
And it's just, there's nothing worse than getting home and wanting to just sit down and turn the TV on and ignore your kids.
I mean, the thing is, you want to give the best to them.
Yes.
You don't want to give your best at work, then come home and give your wife and your kids the dregs of the day. You know what I mean? It's like you work out so I can be that man that when I get home, I'm like, I have the energy still to be able to give to my family. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. One of our friends told me about a week ago, and you know, he's gotten incredibly fit. I think he's lost 80 pounds.
Ahab.
Yeah. 80 pounds. He told me that his wife started getting in shape recently and was asking him about food, and you know, she's in
tremendous shape.
She's in shape. And he said, well, what's this all about? And she said, well, I just see how much energy you had. And he said, what do you mean? She said, you know, you play with the kids when you get home. He said, I always did that. And she said, no, not like this. You would sit down in the backyard, you would have a cigar, and you would watch them play.
Right.
He said, now you're literally on the ground with them. You're in the pool with them all the way till the time they go to bed. And that was so good to hear that, you know? And then when we went on a fishing trip together, Jason saw that he had a 6-pack, and that was the thing that made Jason want to get a 6-pack. So,
and I saw Doug Wood, who we just went on this recent shooting school with, who's super inspirational.
Oh yeah.
And I saw him compete in a competition, and I was like, he said like 0.01% of people have a six pack.
Yep.
And I was like, I made that my goal.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about goals a lot in business and stuff like that. And it can get a bit, it's important to have them. Very, very important to have them. But the market feels saturated in that area. But I'm like, that's something that resonated with me, that I was like, that's what I'm going to get.
Yep.
So by the end of the year, 10%, 9% body fat and bulging abs. And it's not for vanity. No, it's because it's my goal. And I'm like, I want to be in the best shape.
Well, and it's going to do so much more for you, as you know, you've talked about with me. It's really not even about the vanity of it. It's about all the ancillary benefits that come from you committing to really it comes down to denying yourself, because you can't work out hard enough. You have to change the way you eat.
Yep.
And you have to say no a lot. And by doing that, it's going to naturally be catalytic to all these other areas of your life. And you've shared that with me, you know, with whether it's money. And so I'm all about it, man. And I'm so grateful that we're all going after it. And I just feel, you know, we've gone out many times on trips with you or the other guys. And I remember on that fishing trip, we went to a store to grab some food, and, you know, one of our friends, I won't mention his name, but he grabbed a big old bag of potato chips and a loaf of white bread, and Jason literally took it out of his hand.
Good for him. You need that though, don't you? It's dude, like, no, dude, I love you too much. Real
friend, man.
No way, dude.
I don't know about you, man, but I did not have friends taking bags of chips out of my hand.
No, it was like, I'll eat them with you. It's like, no. Take it out of your hand. Get rid of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, hey, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the next generation. I was on a podcast recently, and there was a bunch of young people. They were in their 20s, you know, mid to late 20s. There's probably a few that were younger. And this was a call that I got invited onto to help educate people on creative financing and investing in real estate. And one of the things I got out of that call was the realization of how bad people need real information right now. You know, it's not about getting rich. Being rich is a myth, and it's, you know, it's not that won't make you happy, but we do live in a system right now where I think it's probably more important than it's ever been that people recognize how unhealthy our financial system is.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's going, and nobody does, but it's not good. And it's really important that people, especially if you're young and you have time, you start learning how to put yourself in a really good position. And, you know, we talked about some creative financing, but I thought it'd be fun for you and I to talk about some of the things that young people can do, some of the things that you and I wish we would have done in our 20s that we've learned, so that people can get there faster than we did. Like I tell people all the time in my office, and guys that I coach that are younger than me, you know, and they look up to me, and, you know, and I help them. And I always tell them, it's like, you are going to get where I'm at way faster than me, and you will go past me because you're coachable, number one. And number two, you have more time, you know, because everything when it comes to investing is about a time horizon. Right. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I think you have a very unique message in that world because you came here from the UK without a green card, with no credit score, and you've been able to do some incredible things in a short amount of time. So I'd love to talk about that with you.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think for me, when you're young, there's kind of an element of denial. You know, I don't need to look at my finances. I've got my paycheck coming in next week. And I think that people think they don't know how to delay gratification. And I think something I would say is like, you know, being 18, 19, 20, you have your entire life ahead. Yeah. But I think when you're young, you don't necessarily have that perspective because you are so young.
Right.
But I think if I would have learned to have implemented some of the things that I'm implementing now, I think I had a decent idea because my dad was an investor. He was in real estate. He did really well for himself, but he didn't teach me any of the principles of finance. He didn't teach me how money worked. He didn't teach me anything like that other than get into real estate when you can and, you know, continue to buy.
He gave you what he knew.
He gave me which
was right better than most.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. And I think he gave me what he always said to me, like, real estate is a pension plan. Buy it, hold it. And when it's paid off, you have a great pension scheme. Now that we know that is a one model, it's not the only way to do it. But I think I didn't really start to earn really good money until I was about 27 when I did my first Hollywood movie. And then when I did my first Hollywood movie, I realized the proceeds from that, I didn't have a pension.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to invest that in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did wasn't 27, is a decent age, but I just started to completely inform myself on the workings of the real estate market.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. I want to go back to the word pension because I'm just guessing that right now, because I know so many young people and I know just the narrative of our world right now. You say the word pension, and there are a lot of people in their 20s, they don't even know what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem. High schools, they don't have classes where they teach people how to stay out of debt and manage money. And the first thing that you get thrown at you when you get out of school is student debt.
Right. Yep.
And I just think it's so important that there are people out there that are educating young people on how to set yourself up for success at an early age. So you were looking into real estate. A lot of people right now that are getting out of high school, first of all, there's a ton of people that are not going to college anymore.
Right.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but this is what I think. I think college can be a great thing for a lot of people. But unfortunately, colleges are teaching people, and this is a very broad term, and I'm probably going to get some comments for it, but colleges are not necessarily teaching people usable skills like they used to. In fact, some of them are teaching crazy stuff. I just had a friend I was hanging out with, and he sent his daughter to a college in California, which is not even one of the crazy ones. And he told me it's taken them 3 to 4 years to just try to help her process through some of the things that she learned, basically to root it out of her.
Right.
Because it messed with her belief systems and her values
so
much. So there's a lot of people that are choosing not to go to college. And oftentimes I'm a fan of that because there are so many opportunities right now for people at a young age to make money because of technology, because of the internet. And I think that I would love to talk with you about that because I know your son is kind of creating his own path, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, my son was he's very entrepreneurial. I didn't know that at a young age, but he won Chop Junior at 13. By the time he was 16, he'd written his first book. And now he's working a way of how he can become a private chef, leveraging his influence. He has a very, very successful podcast, and he's starting to leverage him and his business partner, the idea of social media and the influence it can have, and not just working in a storefront, not just working at Chick-fil-A. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very prudent to learn a work ethic. But he's like, I'm not cut out for a 9 to 5, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have a good work ethic, right? So now he's working in affiliate marketing. He's building up that side of the business, and he's working up his private chefing business, and I think he's shrewd when it comes to finances. He's done really well for himself at such a young age,
Yeah. That's cool. I was talking to a friend recently. I have a lot of friends reach out to me for financial advice. And so we met and we were talking about, debt, income. I think the meeting was supposed to be about getting out of debt and creating a budget. But the first thing that I told him was, that's only going to take you so far. You really have to figure out how to raise your income. And that ends up being a conversation I have with a lot of the borrowers in the mortgage business right now, is you can only manage your debt so much. You really have to figure out how to raise your income. And one of the things he said to me was, I don't remember how he said it, but he said, I can't do that because of this. And I said, man, if there's anything that people hear right now, it's they need to stop listening to the media and they need to become very curious and open-minded. Because I have a friend who his wife was our nanny a long time, like 5 or 6 years ago. He got married. They moved to Switzerland. This is a super driven, excellent young man. We've stayed in touch. We talk all the time. He's been in the process of getting his green card, working for a sales job over there, reading every book I tell him to read at night, calling me, asking questions. I mean, he always calls me and asks questions. And so, he about 3 months ago, he said, I'm quitting my job. I said, are you sure about that? You do pretty well, man. He's like, yes, because I've been studying this need for AI in business. And I think I can create a business. I said, well, let's talk through that. So he wrote a business plan. He sent it to me. Well, he literally quit his job 3 months ago. He's making sales every day from Switzerland with American clients. He got his green card and he's traveling to Texas to visit his in-laws before they move back to Reading. And he's got a bunch of sales meetings he's going to hit while he's there with people that are already talking to him.
Wow.
And I love this story because I think that if people become more curious about what's possible right now, yes, the economy is weird. Yes, real estate is not as lucrative as it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But I think what's people have to do is they have to start looking at where the puck is going, you know, that Wayne Gretzky analogy. And you see people doing it right now with AI, with social media, with podcasting, and it's really an incredible time with what can be done online.
I know, and I think the mark of a true entrepreneur is seeing where the financial seasons are shifting. You know, in a way, not that you can predict it, but you can see where it's going. And I think, you know, the rise of AI, and I think, you know, a lot of these young people now can get 6-figure jobs.
They can
online. And I think that's something you couldn't do when I was a kid.
Without college degrees, by the way.
Without college degrees. And going back to your college thing, I think it depends on the college and it depends on what you're studying. Law, accountancy, medicine. Yeah, I think so. Even, you know, I'm the dean of a school. So like, I believe that, you know, it's hard to not. I think you can, but to train to become an actor or a director and not go to college can be tough. I'm not saying you can't circumvent that route and not do it.
Might be
but
my
I
work,
think,
though.
but you know what I mean? But in certain areas, it is worth it. But again, you are encumbered by debt. But that's the model here. It's the model here. So I don't know how to circumvent that. But I think the tools that you can teach, I think a lot of what it comes down to as a kid in financing is wanting to be able to flex, wanting to see what's, you know, how to be that next, like we talked on a previous episode, a Grant Cardone or whoever it be. But I think really the attitude of a wealth mindset or investing is like, you have to overcome yourself. It's all about identity. And if you're basing that identity in the things, like when I did my movie, it was like, I would buy the houses and then I would leverage a profit from a house and I'd go and buy a BMW or a Jag or something like that. And what it was really saying was, I need to be seen to be like this, rather than going, I'm not having the perspective of looking 10, 15 years down the line in leaving. And I'm not talking about legacy wealth, but I'm talking about just being prudent and a good steward of the Lord's money that he's given you. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I mean, even if someone does that, but they're learning how to make money and grow a business, there's worse things, because most people, I mean, listen, it would be great that if someone were in their 20s and they started making a lot of money, that they started investing every dollar and living frugally and having the wisdom of a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old, but that's just not reality.
No, I know.
And, you know, I mean, I think part of the path is making some bad decisions. You know, you just hope that those decisions aren't the kind that sink you, and you have people around you to pick you up, and hopefully you learn from them. You know, it's just like me when I bought assets that were depreciating and they didn't make me happy. I mean, boats, you know, I heard it ever since I was a young man that the best day with a boat is the day you buy it and the day you sell it. And even with that information, I bought a boat.
I know.
And I'll never forget going out on the lake with a bunch of my friends, and it was a sweet boat. You could surf behind it. Everyone could have a great time, and everyone did have a great time except for me, because I'm the one driving it. I'm the one watching the flags. I'm the one polishing it, paying the insurance, stowing it. When I get home, everyone goes home to their families and they are so relaxed. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Chris. That was a great time. And I'm exhausted.
I know.
And so I sold my boat a week after that.
No, and you made money on it as well.
I mean, you usually don't though. I don't, but I did. I got lucky. I got out of that. But the point is, like, we're going to do that. It's part of the deal. I mean, Dave Ramsey himself, part of the reason he is the way he is because he was so over leveraged with so many properties, and it nearly destroyed him early in his career. So he is literally living out and teaching out of his greatest moment of failure.
Yeah.
If he wouldn't have gone through that, he would not be who he is today.
Right. And I think his system for young people is one that can work. Now, I don't necessarily agree with his 5 steps because I think it could take way too long to get there.
Mhm.
I'm not saying necessarily that's the most savvy way to invest, but if I was looking at young people nowadays, I would say, look at Dave Ramsey and actually implement those steps up into a point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, get your main residence, but I wouldn't pay it off before I had more
Right.
money that I wanted to invest in the real estate market. But I do think he provides a very solid framework
Yep.
of how to actually at least start.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But like, you know, I just think like my son is 19. He's just bought a Tesla.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he didn't buy it to flex. His girlfriend lives in a different state, and he's like, Dad, if I buy your car off you because it's safer than his previous car, it's going to cost me way too much money to run. If I buy this, then at least it's going to save me the money in gas. And he made a good point to it. I wasn't just going to say to him, yeah, you can buy a Tesla, no problem. He actually made the case financially of why it made sense to him. You know what I mean?
I do.
He wasn't flexing like I was.
No, and he did the math on it, and you know, those cars are they're inexpensive to operate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is what it is, and if you can get them right now, I think the price on them coming down. I mean, I think a Tesla is a great decision if someone can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So these young people, they were wanting to be investors. So I think being curious, open-minded, and realizing that anything is possible. We literally live in the anything is possible time. It's probably always been that way, but right now with technology, it's just crazy what people can do. I think the second thing that I talked to them about was, yes, a personal family budget is important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because it's going to restrict your spending. It's because you're going to learn how to be an accountant of your money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't steward a little, it's going to be hard to steward a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I told them was, you really need to figure out how to raise your income.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a good employee, they're hard to come by right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for a raise.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get the raise, ask for the path to the raise.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't have a path, find a new employer.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what field you can go into. What marketable skills do you have?
Yeah.
What certifications are you lacking that you may add to what you have now that would make your net worth higher with another employer?
Right.
There's this path and process. If you're deciding that you need to make more income so that you can invest more money and create something that allows you to have financial independence, you really just need to start thinking, what is that path and what is keeping me from getting there?
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Mm-hmm. I think though people look from the social media kind of influencers though, they look at, you know, you get these people posting, oh, I made 30 grand this week in AI.
Yeah.
And people are interested because of that result, but they don't know that it still takes time to get there.
Yep.
And I think what people don't have a lot of the time is the backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, listen, it's not about that. It's the process of getting there. You may get there, you may never get there, but it's good to be able to at least be in this market right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because people my age, you're talking about AI and you're like, good Lord, it's like watching a Steven Spielberg film, or it's like going back to like the Fifth Element that takes you, it takes you into a dystopian kind of feeling, the Orwellian kind of vibe. But I think if we do not engage with it now, then we will miss this next transfer of wealth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, there's a lot of things about this world right now that I don't like. Like I tell people all the time, I don't necessarily love social media.
Mm-hmm.
If I wasn't in the world, in this path that I'm on right now in life, and I had, you know, I was retired or I wasn't working or building businesses, I would not be on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be fly fishing in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be looking at my phone.
Right.
And so it's not that I necessarily love these things. There's pros and cons. There's good and evil to everything, but you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in business today, it's like Gary Vaynerchuk said something the other day. He said that he believes that content creation for business people over the next decade is more important than balancing your checkbook.
Mm.
As that's a powerful statement. And I had to think about that for a second. I was like, man, he might be right.
Yeah. Cause you're investing in a different real estate.
Yep.
I think content creation is because everybody's consuming it.
Yep.
You can't escape from content creation.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't, it's like basically saying, I have a storefront, but I don't have a website.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And if you also want to influence, and whether you want to do it for God or whether you want to do it for your business or whatever you want to do, helping people, if you don't have a social media presence, and mine isn't huge by any stretch, but because of our podcast and stuff, we're engaging with it a lot more now, because I realize that nobody's just going to listen to me in a classroom or preaching to 200 or 300 people. Like if I want the message to go further out there, like for you, your content's amazing on social media.
Thank you.
And now you're starting to reach a much bigger audience, and it's only going to grow because of the time you're investing in it. And I think for you, because you're young, you fit, you've got a young family, you appeal to a young market as well. And I think if young people don't hear what you have to say, we're going to have a generation that misses that information. You know, so I think it's super important what you're doing.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah. And so, you know, going back to young people, people have to really become, they have to become able to start recognizing these patterns and become really open to it. I mean, there's definitely these fundamentals that we talk about all the time of the budget, the income, and learning to invest. The other thing is you want to try to identify the fraudsters, right? So going back to your comment about Instagram, there are a lot of people right now that are just frauds, period. And I don't know how to sugarcoat that. You know, I had a guy that I was kind of involved with on a coaching level, and he had 5 Lamborghinis, an airplane, and he was flying private jets around. And, you know, I would have thought this guy was worth $500 million, but something about it felt wrong. And I've learned to discern these things about people. And so I made a couple calls, and sure enough, you know, I'm not poking the guy. The guy had a pretty hard past, and he's had some high income years, but he's leveraged to the gills. He literally does not care about saving a single dollar, and he really likes Lamborghinis. And you know what? There's worse things in life, but the problem is he has a giant Instagram following, a giant YouTube following, and he gives people advice. And because of the symbolism that comes from a Lambo, a jet, a plane, a Rolex, a lot of young people are listening to him, and they're getting horrible advice. And so I think the last thing I would want to tell people is, when you are dealing with people who are helping you make really important decisions in your life, you really need to know that they actually know what they're talking about. And they don't have to necessarily be way up here. They just need to be a little bit further than you. And they're going to give you something, and you really want to know that. And generally, if it's a referral through a friend group, you know, you can kind of check these things. I mean, my coach goes as far as to tell us that if we hire a financial planner, we should look at their tax returns, or if we hire a CPA. And I've never done that. My financial planner would probably think that was weird, but you just have to consider where you're getting information.
And I think, listen, if you can start as a young person just with the basics, like you talk about family budget, I actually never had a value to that because I thought it was restricting. Now that I do it, I mean, I spend 15 minutes a day on my finances every single day. And
good job, man.
It's because I've got into the rhythm. Like, what can I input in my spreadsheet that I've spent over the last day?
Do you like it now?
I love it.
Because isn't that weird? You were so afraid of it. Now you actually like it.
I know. And the reason why I like it is, I think, because I put these other rhythms in my life that I'm like, listen, I'm 48 years old. All right, I might have a bunch of real estate, but it doesn't matter if I don't know if I'm not stewing in my daily stuff. I might say, well, I might need to save $1,000 that month, so I need to cut back in these areas. And I know data-wise where it's coming from. I can make informed choices. Like, I didn't like process before, and I didn't like data. That's because I was living with a rebellious spirit. And I was like, no, I don't want to be held down. But that just showed my insecurity. Now it's like, I love process because it actually helps me achieve what I want to achieve. Can you imagine me saying to you, oh, I'm going to get a 6-pack by Christmas. You went, what's your process? I mean, I don't have one. Well, you're just shooting at nothing. You're going to hit it every time. And the thing is, it's like that with finances. Like, now I've got to it late in life, but at least I'm getting there. And I'm like, okay, now this is going to inform what I can do for my future, for my kids, you know? And I learned that from you. So
Fab, thanks for being with me today.
It's been a pleasure, dude. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So one of the things that we talked about, and I want to recap it, is if someone's young and they want to become an investor, the first thing is, yes, it's important to have a personal family budget, but you really want to figure out how to raise your income right now. Real estate is more expensive than it was. Wages have not come up. Focus on ways to increase your income. Number two, you do want to become an accountant to your finances. You do want to know where every dollar goes. And then I think the third thing is figure out what types of certifications, marketable skills that you can work on as you're growing your income, investing money. There's so many things you can do right now. I mean, we talked about AI, social media, content creation. These are some of the big things, but the thing about our world and technology is there are so many things that are right around the corner. So anyways, if you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to leave us a comment or ask a question. We will definitely get in there and answer them for you. And thanks again.
Thanks, bro.